Hi everyone, welcome back to the Scrapbooking Photographer. Linda's my name. If you've already subscribed to my channel, thanks very much. It's lovely to have you along. If you haven't, but you like what you see today, I'd really appreciate your subscription. So today we're going to be looking at the stamp of the month for March 2023 for Close to My Heart, which has all these characters from down under. So we've got kangaroos, koalas and presumably echidnas. So I'm not the best colourer, and these ones just beg to be coloured in. So what I've decided to do with mine is to blend the middle and then just put a few highlights into the animals where there's these big spaces, and colour the smaller bits a little bit more intricately. So anyway, I'll show you a couple of different cards, but I'll just start with the slimline one. And my plan is to have 3 of animals here, and we're going to do all the ones with the flowers. So we can put thank you bunches next to it and it all kind of flows. We're going to use some inks and the tri-blend markers and some of the watercolouring pencils. So I'll just get those out of the way for now. And the initial ink I'm going to be using is Intense Black. So because I'm going to be using the alcohol markers to colour in some parts, one of the reasons I haven't enjoyed colouring in the past is because I was doing the outlines with the normal black, and when I added the ink from the alcohol markers, it bled the black ink and it kind of blurred the lines and it didn't appeal to me at all. So what I have found with this Intense Black is that it works a whole lot better. So we're going to stamp with that and we'll get started. So we've got our first kangaroo. So I'm going to line these up so this guy is on the right hand side because he's the tallest, or she obviously is the tallest, so she can go on the right hand side, and then we'll have the little koala who's also facing that way, and then we'll have the echidna who finishes off with the flower up here. So I'll go ahead and stamp those. So I'll bring in the sponge side of the Versamat, which is always good to stamp on, and then using the Intense Black, making sure we get the ink. It's always good to look through your stamp, and you can see I've got some ink up here, so I just need to wipe that away before I stamp, particularly when you're going directly onto the card stock, whether it be a card that you're making or what you're putting in your album. Just check the outer edges, and also looking through it you can make sure that you've got some ink on all the little intricate pieces in the middle. So that looks good. So we're going to start with this little guy over here, and he needs to be kind of straightish in the middle. So get those feet lined up along the bottom, and we'll pop him down there. And clean him off before putting him back in the pack and getting the koala. So this little koala also has a bunch of flowers, so he's going to go next because he's also facing this direction. So he kind of, and I'm going to sort of mix him in there so that the little Joey is got his tail on the grass, so that they'll look like they're all together. So again, checking the sides, looks good. Come in here, and I think he's just going to fit kind of quite nicely there. Okay, that's good. Again, wipe him down. Then the last one to bring in is the little echidna with the big daisy. So we'll put him on here, and he's also got a little bit of grass on him, so we'll try and match him up with the grass on this side. And he's just going to, oops, I've already dabbed it down unfortunately, so I'll have to go with where that was. Mix them in there. And there we've got our grouping of 3 stamps, all with their flowers. Right, so we're going to do some colouring now, and there's 3 different tools really. One is the blending brushes, which this is what I'm going to use for pine, and that is by far my favourite way to blend colours with the blending brushes, but they are quite expensive. So whilst I'm building up my supply of those, I'm also using the blending tool, which comes with, well, it doesn't come with them, or it might come with a couple, but then you can buy extra Velcro circles and have one per colour, which is a cheaper way of having an option. And there's also the domed ones, which is kind of a combination between the flat-edged Velcro stick and the blending brush. So today we're going to start with Mocha, and we're going to colour in the kangaroo in Mocha, and the echidna in Mocha, and the koala we're going to colour in pewter. So we've got on here the Velcro dot that I use for Mocha. So we get the Mocha ink, and we're going to just lightly colour in the kangaroo, the 2 kangaroos. So very lightly, doesn't matter that it's over the edges, that's part of the plan. That. And then we're going to take that one off, close up, put on the pewter to do the koala as we move along. In the same way, just gradually just getting that colour across his body. And then we'll change again. Could have done them at the same time, I suppose. Go back to the Mocha, which seems the appropriate colour to use on the echidna. Okay. Right, now using the pine, I'm going to put the impression of grass along the bottom. So I'm just going to use on the multi-purpose mat, and just gently using the pine on the brush, and then coming in so that we go kind of halfway up so that it looks like there's some grass along the bottom and up the sides. And also just a little bit in there to make it seem like it goes behind there, and we'll just blend it a little bit there. And I quite like the look of the sharper edge around the edge, so just come in and darken up that bottom bit. And then we'll go back to the blending tool, swap it out for the one we use for periwinkle. Sorry, for bluebird, not periwinkle, bluebird. And then we're going to put the impression of sky. Now, because we don't want any of the ink to get on the back of the card, and it's a lot easier to hold it in place when it's only one layer, so I don't really want to fold it yet. So I'm just going to hold that piece of scrap paper there and come down, just bringing in some nice blue sky. If you start off the edge and come in, then you're more in control of the amount of ink that goes onto the card, because you can always add, but you can't take away. And you can see that these Velcro circles do come out like circles, which is something that is okay as a sky, because when you look at it in the bigger picture, it looks a little bit like clouds forming, so that's okay. Right, so there we have the basic look, and then we'll go through and just bring a little bit of definition to those wee animals once that ink is dry. So I have cleaned and dried my all-purpose mat, because any of the ink that went over the sides we don't want on the inside of the card as we move it around. So I'll pop that back there. And then to highlight some of these animals and just bring a bit of definition, we're going to use the colouring pencils, and I've got out the brown and the grey, and so I'm just going to imagine that the sun's coming from this angle, and we're going to highlight, or dark light I guess, the shadow, the areas that would be shadowed by that. So if you can imagine what that would look like. We'll start with the koala, light coming down here, but he's going to have a crease in his leg here, so we're going to have a bit of a shadow in here. This ear will be darker. So I just find doing this part of the work a lot easier with pencils than with the blending markers, and also I don't have all the colours, so I don't have a grey or a brown in the tri-blend markers, so it's a matter of making do with what you've got. So the sun's coming down here. He's also going to have a bit of a shadow around his nose and perhaps that side of his head as it goes around into the dark side. Okay, so his head is stuck under his arm there, so the shadow would be there. This would be slightly shadowed by the flower basket, and under here his other arm would be all shadowed by the flower basket, and this leg would be shadowed. We'll just give him a little bit down here because around his back would be in the shade. So you can just see how that adds a little bit of depth, but a little bit of three-dimensional look to him. Okay, and then we'll do the same with the brown on the echidna. Sun coming down here. He's going to be shadowed a bit down here and under his arm, where his arm goes across, and just the top of his arm and the bottom of his arm. If you go a little bit there, it just helps to give it the look that it's rounded. Okay, so that gives a little bit of dimension to these guys. And so to colour in and make it a little bit brighter, we're going to use the markers. And it doesn't matter that some of it's had the ink over it, we'll just go over the top of that. We're going to try, well, all we've got is the colours I've got. That's all we can use. So I'm going to start with some hydrangea blend. And because they're tricolours, if you're not actually using them for blending, you've got 3 different colours, the light, the medium and the dark. So rather than on these little flowers doing each one and blending them, I'm going to use all 3 colours and just make a different colour bouquet. So again, darker ones would be the ones in the shade. So there you've got 3 flowers. You've got in the sun, so there's some light on that one, and then these ones, and this one's down in the shade, so there's the 3 different colours that you've got there. So we'll just mix it up a little bit. Now we need the green, so I've got the jade green. So again, there's not a lot of room to blend, but we're going to pretend there is, and all these leaves, so we'll start with the light, and that would be obviously lighter up the top where the sun is shining on them. Some of them haven't got room for blending, so we'll just colour them in, and then we'll go dark at the bottom as they get into the basket. And are in the shade. These ones here can be dark. And then the middle one we use just in between the 2 shades, just to kind of blend them together, which is what they're designed to do. Okay, now if that looks a little bit too stripy for you, you can go over the light part again just to help blend them in. Often you don't need to. Okay, so the little daisy there, we're going to do the centre of it yellow. And it is facing up to the sun, so it'll be, and I'll just do the other ones in here yellow as well while I've got the pen. And I think it's going to be red. Oh no, maybe pale pink. Got pale pink. I do like pink, so pink and purple go together. So again, we'll start with the light. This one is a slightly bigger flower, so we'll start with the light on the outside. And the dark in the inside. And because of where the light's coming from, there'll be more shade on this area over this side. Yeah, and then the bit in the middle. Just to blend them up. And then over again with the light. Now I think that's quite a good colour also to do this one. So starting with the light, we're coming in from this edge, from the outside. If you look at flowers, they are definitely darker towards the middle of the flower. And these are going to be quite light towards the outside because that's where the light is coming from. Okay, and a little bit of dark, just a little bit on this side because, as I say, the sun's going to be there, but there will be slightly more shadow over the side. Okay. And then using the blender to come in the middle and just blend those dark and light areas together. And just to finish off and make it even more blended, we'll come in again with the light colour and just go out from the blended area to where we've already been with the light. Okay, and we need to do the middle in the yellow. And again, it's going to be light on the side. Dark on this side. And then in between. Do the light once more, just there. Okay, so whilst we've got the yellow ones, we'll also do the baskets. So with the light coming from the side, this piece here is going to be kind of in the light, but kind of not, because it's also be shadowed by the flowers. So we'll just colour them in. We're going over all of it with the light this time. And then we'll go dark in the areas that we know would be darker. So these bits hidden by his face and the shadows in the bottom. And then we can blend in the middle, and again go over that light one. Okay, so as I say, they're great blenders, but they're also great as individual colours. So this guy, he's might have been a bit heavy-handed with the mocha ink here, but we'll start with the light. So there is my very basic way of colouring, and we'll just put the sentiment here of thank you bunches. I'm bringing in a scrap piece of white daisy, and again with the intense black. And I think this would be quite nice with a little bit of shape to it. So I'm going to trim it up with some shapes on the end. Okay, so I've stamped it and I've just made the little corner at the end. And the way you do that is just to measure the same length in with your scissors from halfway across, and then come in from the corners to the end of your cut line. And you'll get two nice even corners. So go around the outside with the sponge, because you need something nice and little that's going to go in around these tight little corners. So the price you pay for not measuring things properly is, I think that's a bit too long, so I'm going to shorten it. So that looks better, just a little bit shorter. So I just chopped the end off and did the same process. And so we'll pop that in on a little bit of foam tape. And then we'll add a little bit of bling. The downside of doing the colouring directly on the card is that it does come through a little bit. So that's something to be aware of. So there's two options. One is that this all could have been done on a separate piece and then stuck on as an extra onto the front of the card. Or you can go inside and just place little pieces over the top and the bottom, which actually gives it a little bit more stability when it stands up. So I have already cut these to be you know, just a 1/4 of an inch shy all the way around, so they should fit in there. But before I attach them, I'm just going to go around the edges with the pine ink just to define them a little bit, and then it gives you somewhere to perhaps stamp a sentiment or to write a note. And when you ink this way, it isn't necessarily even, and you do get a couple of little imperfections, but that's absolutely okay. Well, I think it's okay anyway. And you can see it just takes that cut edge off the edge of the white cardstock. Extra there, so we don't need that. Get rid of that. Just tidy that end up a bit. Okay, and we'll just pop those on there. You can bring in a little stamp, a coordinating stamp to put in the middle if you wanted to, or leave it just to words, whether written or stamped. So there's lots of different options. But the point is that you don't always have to add it onto the top. You can put it in the bottom. And then we fold it over. And there we have it. And a couple of others I've done with the irresistible papers in the background with the bluebird cardstock behind. So I've added a little bit of highlighting to these guys, but I haven't done anything to this one yet. Now I'll just move those to one side, and you'll notice that there's an extra in here. Now I'm sure I'm not unique in being the only Kiwi with lots of Australian relatives, but I am in fact the youngest of 22 cousins, and I am the only Kiwi. Even my 2 older brothers were Australian. So I have a wonderful family in Australia, and so I decided to use the Precious Moments stamps and just use a Kiwi from one of my other sets to bring in. And every year the female side of my extended family get together in Brisbane for lunch. So I've got some photos of that, so I'm going to bring those in onto a page. So I'm just going to add some highlights in here to these ones that I stamped up a couple of days ago. keep watching my Instagram or Facebook and you'll see when that page gets done. And so there's the use of that colouring technique in different ways. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and maybe if you're a little bit reluctant to colour those big areas as I am, this will offer you an alternative of how to do it. Thanks very much for watching. If you are new to the channel, again, please subscribe. Every subscription is much appreciated. Thanks very much.